on this very important occasion. Dr. Dhuri, three of us from
same university,
from different periods. But
YouTube live.
All right. Okay, we are on YouTube live also, and the participants have already started coming in. That's something good.
You have some 2 minutes. You have some 2 minutes.
Yes. Yeah. We have 2 minutes, but I'm waiting Dr. Shinan and Dr. Parag to show up. How should we do it, Dr. Dhuri? Do you think should we show some film for first 10 minutes? We have enough of time. I will speak about 9 to 10 minutes initially. Who should speak after me?
I believe Parag should.
Okay.
See why I tell you so that you started with the Indian context.
Yeah.
Then we go around with these two our friend speakers, and then if there is any input required, specific input comes up, then I will there at the end of it.
Okay.
Whatever. Otherwise, it's there.
Yeah. Okay. But of course,
so you get a chance to defend whatever comes up in between.
Yes. Correct. And you will be meeting Dr. Shinan Harpas for the first time today.
Yeah, sure. Namaskar.
क्या नमस्कार.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
हो आता.
Wonderful, wonderful. Did you notice that out of 4 speakers, 3 are from
KKV.
KKV?
आणि अरुण आणि मी आम्ही दिल्लीत पण बरोबर होतो.
Oh, wonderful. All right. Okay. So we will start, I guess, in just it's 1 minute after 4, and I'm waiting for Shinan to appear. Good. So in just a minute or so, we will begin. Dr. Shinan Harpaz is from Israel, is trying to join in, and Dr. Arun, can you please confirm if our sharing is working? Just see if. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
you are able to see the sharing.
Yes,
now?
I can see this.
Okay. Dr. Parag, how about you?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So. एक आदमी सब ने शिनान लगा है संभव. Hello. Doctors. There we go. There we go, Dr. Shinan. All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody. There are already 40 plus attendees already watching us. And here we are. We have Dr. Parag Chitnis, if you can raise your hand, Parag, Dr. Parag. Yeah, he is from which city?
Right now, I'm in Kansas City.
Yeah. Parag is from Kansas City,
Yeah.
USA, and it is 4:30 in the morning. Dr. Parag, sorry we are troubling you so early in the morning, but this is for India.
Yeah.
Then we have another friend of India, Dr. Shinan Harpaz. Yeah, we can see you, Shinan. And Dr. Shinan is from Israel. What time do you have, Dr. Shinan?
Now it's 1:30 in the afternoon, not as early as my colleague here.
Okay. And of course, Dr. Arun Dhuri is from Mumbai. For your information, Dr. Shinan, Dr. Arun Dhuri, Parag, and myself, we are from the same university, that is Konkan Krishi Vidyapit, Dapoli.
Mhm.
I don't remember if I took you to Dapoli.
Yes, you did, and I've seen the university there, and I can
Oh,
see the good people that have come out of this university.
oh, you got to see one more. You got to see one more. This is Anil.
Hello.
Anil is also from Dapoli and my associate. And this is another of our associate, Parshuram. Parshuram is, we are a team. It's a high core team. All the research work, all the extension work, all the field work that we do to get success and that we do for a better India. We are together all the time. So thank you very much, all the participants, all the panelists, and we will begin now. I have already introduced you to these three great speakers that we have, but Dr. Parag is heading the research and development research wing of USDA, that is called as NIFA, National Institute of Food and Agriculture. Parag, I know from his childhood. Then Dr. Shinan Harpaz, he and me, we got to know each other in 1989. That was the first time when I went to Israel. And Dr. Harpaz is a master thinker of the whole world as far as the aquaculture animals, especially crustaceans. And he has headed Israel's Research and Development Department Research Wing. And then Dr. Arun Dhuri. Dr. Arun Dhuri is an entomologist, also passed from the same university as Dr. Parag and myself did. And Dr. Arun Dhuri did his post-graduation, that is doctoral work at IRI, Delhi. Plus, they will all, when they will speak, you will all know them and their work in this regard. So when they will speak, we will all get to know about them. Today we have gathered to get to know each other, to acquaint you with one of our work, and that is SJT, Saguna Jala Samvardhan technique. We here in Saguna Baug, three of us, we are all basically farmers, and we work for the farmers. And while we were working with the farmers, we came across some problems that were environmental. One, you know, the forest, the hills, and the orchards catch fire. How to extinguish those fires without human intervention? This was one. Then, as we are also into aquaculture, production of fish on our farm, one of the pond got infested with floating weed, that is Water Hyacinth and Pistia both together, and it was a big problem. So we addressed that problem and we came up with the technique SJT, Saguna Jala Samvardhan technique. And SRT is for rice-based farming system, that is no-till regenerative method of farming. And we are pretty successful with that. There are almost 5,000 farmers in 26 districts of Maharashtra who have become happy using this technique. So today we will be talking on especially this water bodies, how to get them rid of the invasive weed such as water hyacinth. So I will read my this initial paper. I will this is introductory paper for the today's subject, and it is protection of water bodies from floating weeds such as water hyacinth with SJT method using herbicide such as glyphosate. My name is Chandrasekhar Bhatsavale. Water bodies such as lakes, rivers, reservoirs, dams, canals, etc. are very important for our survival, especially in countries like India. There are many limitations to creating new ones. Today, the existing ones are facing severe problem along with many others, especially by the floating weeds such as water hyacinth, pistia, etc. Just to list a few problems caused by this weed are: it covers the complete surface area of the water so thickly that it cuts off the sunlight reaching lower levels of water and also stops the natural oxygenation process at the surface of water. Second, it stops original natural fauna growing in the water by blocking the natural food chain. Thus, the original biodiversity is brought to a halt. 3, they are called killer weeds, responsible for killing the water body, various animals, amphibians, and even human beings. 4, the thick matting of the weeds on the water surface creates a perfect situation for breeding of mosquitoes and such harmful insects. And there are so many other problems. But it is surprising that many in the educated class of our society believe that the weeds like water hyacinth are good for water body because they remove pollution from the water, because they are indicators of water quality. They are shining green with nice flowers, hence very beautiful. It's also believed that they help support some birds, especially the ones whose food chain is in the negative anaerobic condition. Some believe that it is a free biomass that can be used for generation of biogas and to produce manure. When we faced this problem in Saguna Baug, our farm, our team came up with SJT protocol. SJT is Saguna Jala Samvardhan Technique protocol in 2017 to overcome the problem of pistia in one of our farm ponds. The same technique was used on a 40-acre large lake, that is Dr. Salim Ali Lake at Aurangabad. The Aurangabad lake was treated by SJT method in May 2019. And as you can see from the photographs, as of today, and today's last picture that we have is of August, 15th August. As of today, the lake is clean, and according to the local newspapers and the environmentalists there, the large number of diverse types of birds are returning back to the lake once again. The Saguna Jala Samvardhan technique, popularly known as SJT, is a water body rejuvenation and conservation technique. The SJT technique involves the usage of general purpose systemic weedicide on the targeted weed, such as water hyacinth and pistia, for cleansing the weed out of the water body, following which the removal of the dead weed is done. The polluted portion of the water is then treated with the help of useful microbes, appropriate combination of fish species, and ecologically beneficial plants such as lotus to manage the soluble pollutants in the water body, ensure optimum oxygenation of the water, and maintain the natural beauty of the water body. We are also happy about our work on Ulhas River in Thane district that was done in March 2021. The work is so successful and all the stakeholders are very happy about the results. There was not even a smallest negative impact observed during the 30-kilometer stretch of the river. We use the enzymatic product called Glyphosate, a herbicide to overpower the floating weed without disturbing the local fauna. Glyphosate is a known very safe chemical used for agriculture and the environment to control the unwanted weedy growth. We are using glyphosate on my farm since 1996, and I have seen only positive impacts on our soil. The soil organic carbon has gone from 0.3% to 1.5% at the moment. The soil has become smoother and fragrant. Natural appearance of millions of earthworms on our land. As far as the ecology is concerned, we have recorded 52 species of butterflies and moths, 17 species of snakes, 27 species of spiders, 120 species of birds, 64 species of insects, and at least 4 different types of honeybees. And there are many other things. This biodiversity is on the rise. The thousands of guests, including the international scientific community, who visit here get overwhelmed with the existing green tranquility, of which the biodiversity is the built-in feature. We have performed several analytical tests on our soil, water, and food items on our farm for its residual glyphosate contents from accredited laboratories. Now we have at least 5,000 follower farmers of our technologies where glyphosate and other weedicides is a main tool and are extremely happy in their farming profession, who otherwise would have left farming and came to the city. Our technique is now accepted by FAO, that is United Nations, to spread it all over the world. Water bodies like Powai Lake have suffered heavily in multi-directional activities since 1998, when we have got record of Powai Lake getting large amount of water hyacinth, that is in early 80s. But 1998, the IIT Bombay had to shut down their boat club because of the water hyacinth. The lake is on the path of dying and needs urgent attention. It should be treated with the SJT method, because based on our previous 3 experiences, the SJT team can show remarkable improvements at the lakeside within 6 to 8 months. And we give assurance that water hyacinth will not regrow in the next few years with minimum maintenance. Our technique also involves adding fish of 5 different types so that the untreated biological waste entering the lake will be treated as fertility. And with the help of aeration and sun energy, it will be converted into single cell algae. It will be consumed by the fish, and in turn, the lake will produce food and wealth. At the same time, the fish will keep the lake biologically healthy, clean, and productive. My friends, this is the initial introductory thing I wanted to put forth in front of you. And we will now request our panelists, our experts, to comment on our technique and on our methodology, which we are doing. Though we are friends and we know each other very closely, but we are apart. We haven't met in several years with each other. I will request Dr. Parag to throw some light on this technique. You can also mention that how long you know me and my work. And Dr. Parag is heading USDA as far as its research and development is concerned. Dr. Parag, we would like to know from you whether glyphosate is safe and whether it is used sufficiently in United States. Thank you. Please go ahead, Dr. Parag.
Thank you for inviting me to talk here in this webinar. So I'm Parag Chitnis, and I grew up in on the other side of the river, my father's farm, than what Mr. Barsawale's farm is. So I know him from when I was growing up, and in fact, he was my inspiration in taking education in agriculture. So I followed his footsteps, went to Konkan Krishi Vidyapit, and then went to United States to study. My expertise is in plant biochemistry, so I'm a biochemist by training. I've had over 100 publications in plant biochemistry, including photosynthesis, proteomics, and metabolism. I was a professor at Kansas State University as well as at Iowa State University before moving to United States National Science Foundation, as well as then now at National Institute of Food and Agriculture. My remarks and views are not representative of the USDA, but are my own as an expert in this area as far as biochemistry is concerned. What I'm going to talk about is what glyphosate does, just the basic of it, and then how it is used in the United States. And before that, I also want to kind of make sure that this is based on the body of knowledge, not just one paper, one publication in the literature, but a body of knowledge based on the collection of papers. And that's the way regulatory agencies in the United States use, is look at the collection of papers and then derive a body of knowledge. That's how FDA makes decisions about whether COVID-19 vaccine should be approved or not just by one set of data sets, but with a body of knowledge. So going back to glyphosate, this is an inhibitor, enzyme inhibitor that inhibits shikimate pathway. That's the pathway that produces aromatic compounds such as folate or aromatic amino acids. And that pathway exists in bacteria and animals. It does not, bacteria and plants. It does not exist in animals. That's why we are dependent on plant-derived foods for getting those aromatic amino acids and vitamins like folate, because we can't synthesize it. None of the animals can synthesize it on their own. Therefore, when glyphosate was first introduced and approved in like 1974, it was that because it does not impact animal biochemistry, animal metabolism, it doesn't impact animals. It is spread widely in the United States. Then companies came up with varieties that are resistant to glyphosate, and that is used in weed control. And environmentally, it has been shown to be safe. EPA, the body that regulates use of chemicals, including herbicides and pesticides, has approved it for wide use in United States agriculture. It has found that it does not have negative impact on health. For example, it has shown that there is no risk of concern to human health. There is no indication there is any concern to children. There is no evidence that it causes cancer. And there is no indication that glyphosate is an endocrine disruptor, like inhibits growth in animals or in humans. In terms of food safety, I think it is considered safe. One of the reasons I think glyphosate is considered safe is because it degrades rapidly when it goes in natural environment, including water or soil, because the bacteria there can consume it and then use it as a source of either phosphorus or because there are some bacteria that are resistant to those. So I think that's one of the reasons it has been found to be safe in the environment. So this is the background. And the other use that I think is being currently used in the India, like what I think Mr. Bhadsawade just described, is for treating and what he called weeds, which are the invasive species. Those are not native to those ecosystems, and then they overtake those ecosystems. In the United States, the water hyacinth or water lettuce are invasive species. They are not native to United States. They block waterways or other water bodies, and they decrease biodiversity in those lakes and the water bodies, such as like the canals or rivers. They also, because I think some of the reasons I think Mr. Bhadsawade already described to you, they also impact the overall balance of the ecosystem outside the lake, because many parts of the lakes are used, like animals as well as plants are used by other, like either insects or birds outside those lake ecosystems. And thus, when an invasive species takes over, it decreases biodiversity and decreases balance of the lake ecosystem with the terrestrial ecosystem. This is the reason why invasive species are considered very seriously, at least in the United States, whenever there are either plants or animals that act as invasive species, where they proliferate tremendously in ecosystem where they are not usually found. They are controlled, and this is where, like, United States has, I think, strong programs in controlling different types of invasive species. Therefore, again, the chemical uses have been found effective in controlling invasive species and making sure the ecosystems are in balance. So this is the kind of a background I wanted to talk about. At least in the United States, glyphosate has been found to be completely safe in human health, in animal health, and also in environmental ecological health, as long as it is used at the levels that is recommended using the applicators that are recommended so that non-target species are not killed. The other part that I just then in preparation for this, I kind of looked at the literature. What has been literature in terms of reptile kind of impacts of glyphosate? And there have been papers on different reptile species, how glyphosate may impact it. The only effect they have seen is temporary, and that's through the enteric bacteria, which may get impacted by high doses of glyphosate, which are unlikely to be in water bodies because it gets immediately diluted in water. And therefore, I think there is no significant risk posed by glyphosate in when it is used in water bodies such as large lakes, where it gets diluted right away. That's one of the reasons for the weeds that are inside the water. Glyphosate is not recommended because it gets diluted tremendously and it's no longer effective in killing those weeds. Only those weeds that float on the top of water, it can be sprayed directly on those weeds and can be then can be effective. It's also a slow killing weeds herbicide so that it doesn't kill right away, which allows the natural ecosystems to actually use the organic matter release in a more conservative manner, more systematic manner, rather than adding it to the water right away, which could also make it more anaerobic because the bacteria degrading it can immediately increase in the population. That's why it's something that is used widely in treating water bodies, in controlling invasive species. So those are the remarks I have, and I'll be happy to answer if any questions appear.
Thank you, Dr. Parag. It was really a very enlightening speech. You know, I didn't know so many things, and I'm so glad I got to know so many other things. It's just fantastic. Now that we know the efficacy, the modus operandi of glyphosate, and I'm glad that the reason that we are very effective in using glyphosate on water hyacinth, which is floating weed. Now we know why we are so effective, because it's floating and the leaves are on top of the water. So that was good. But now I would like to hear from Dr. Shinan that people are very concerned that if we spray glyphosate on the invasive weed, would it affect any aquatic fauna, such as fish, or this lake where we are working right now, that is Powai Lake? I'm sure you probably, while passing by to the airport, you have passed by that lake, and the Powai Lake has crocodiles, and people want crocodiles to be safe. So we are concerned whether the aquatic life will be safe when we are using this technique. Thank you, Dr. Shinan.
I will start with a short introduction of myself and how I know the Batsavle family. So I am a marine biologist by education, and my expertise is in fish nutrition, fish and crustacean nutrition. And I happened to meet Shekhar and his lovely wife, Anuradha, 32 years ago in Israel, where they were very surprised to see that the amount of rain that we get in Israel, the annual amount of rain, is equivalent to 1 day of rain, heavy rain, monsoon rain in your part of the world. So we have to do our maximum to conserve our water and to use the water wisely. Now, to answer your question, about 25 years ago, I was approached by the farmers here in Israel who grow koi carp. This is ornamental carp. And one of the problems that they raised was the fact that these are ornamental carp people would like to come, see them, enjoy them. And if you have them in a pond and the pond is covered with filamentous algae or with water hyacinth on top, the people cannot see these beautiful fish. Now you must remember that these fish are very valuable and each fish is sold for an enormous amount of money. In fact, some of these fish can be sold for 100 or 200 lakh per fish. So this is very, very valuable. So they wanted to know what would be the effect of glyphosate and other herbicides on these fish if they spray them on the water in order to kill the filamentous algae. Of course, I was not going to do experiments with these expensive fish. We did experiments with fish from the same family, the carp family. You in India have a number of species of these carps. We have mainly the Cyprinus carpio, which is the main one in Israel. And we also have, of course, koi carp. You have other species like rojo, katla, and other species of the same family. So I decided to test this in different dosages in the water to see the effect. I was very happy to see that the effect on the filamentous algae was tremendous, even when using the low dose that is recommended for land use of the glyphosate. And of course, we went up to higher and higher levels and did not see any adverse effect on the fish, not at the time when we applied and not later to see later effects. Of course, when we're talking about koi carp, which are so valuable, we do not want to be in a situation where we don't see anything immediately after application, but at a later stage, the fish develop growths or problems of that sort. So we checked, we kept the fish going for 2 and 3 years after the application and found no adverse effects on it. That brings me back to when I teach at university, or even when I give popular lectures, I ask people, what do they think of genetically modified organisms, GMOs? And of course, most people are against GMOs. And I say, what happens if you will eat a plant that has GMO in it, or it's a GMO plant? And they say, no, we won't eat it because it's dangerous, it's problematic, etc. And I say, well, I'm sorry to tell you, but each and every one of you has been consuming GMO plants. So they say, how can it be? I said, because 85% of the soybean in the world is GMO. The next question I ask is, do you know what is the GMO in this plant? What is being changed here? So most people say it's being more resistant to diseases or to drought or to things of that sort. And I say, no. The GMO soybean, which is sold all over the world, is GMO with resistance to glyphosate. That's all. And why is that so important? Because when you sow the soybean, later on, you can spray with glyphosate. All the weeds will perish and your soybean will grow because it's resistant to glyphosate. So these are the good and the bad effects that exist. And if I look at the whole picture, as we've heard before from Dr. Parag, gave a very important view of the whole system, we can say for sure that of the chemicals that we know, and there are many chemicals, this is one of the safest to be used even in water bodies, because even though the water body is very deep. The concentration used is the same as for land surface. That is, although we calculate it as for land surface, the body of water contains, in many instances, many meters of water below the surface. So the effect that reaches the bottom of the water body is, of course, much less than at the top layer. Therefore, I think that it is a good solution for getting rid of some of these weeds, which are a true menace, and the effect on the other animal kingdom, other population of animals, wildlife, in my opinion, is minimal. I will end here and let my colleague have his part.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Shinan. We are getting some very beautiful questions, but we will go to the questions little later. But this is getting more and more interesting. So nice. I'm so happy. Now I would like to invite Dr. Arun Dhuri, who is the internationally famous
There is some problem with the sound.
Shekhar, you have a problem with the sound.
Yeah, now it's okay. Hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Hello. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. It was really nice to hear Dr. Parag Chitnis from USDA taking a broad canvas.
What? Sure, we can hear. We can hear. It's okay.
Okay. So Dr. Parag took us to the whole canvas of glyphosate, development, usage, chemistry, safety, and everything. It was great. And Dr. Shinan very specifically picked up the GMO and relevance of that for glyphosate and the crops. Now, I am working on glyphosate since last 25 years in India. Such a wonderful product, such a so welcome product by the farmers of all the areas, whether it is a horticulture people, where there is a household gardens, or all kinds of farming, whether to take a tea or any other crop, apple. So weed control with glyphosate has really caught up wonderfully in this country. Why so? There were herbicides even before that. But glyphosate took the whole farming community to a different level, because glyphosate was able to control all kinds of weeds, such a broad spectrum of efficacy, number one. Number two, being systemic, it was able to kill noxious weeds by its roots. So it was a root solution for a typical difficult to control weeds like Saguna and cyperus, more specifically cyperus. And control of cyperus with glyphosate was such a surprise to farmers where I talked to them in the Western Maharashtra, and they used to say, what kind of great product it is. It is able to control even cypress, and that too up to the roots. Now, these kinds of very typical different attributes made glyphosate popular. In the beginning, the prices were high. As it grew, Indian production started, and now the prices have become so competitive that use of glyphosate is much more economical than trying to do weeding by any other means, whether it's a mechanical, manual, whatever you talk about. As the farming in this country is progressing, farmers in this country are progressing. Any farmer wasting time in removing weeds by hand is absolutely waste of time and energy. He can do much better work for farming, for post-harvest, for marketing, etc., etc. So weed control by glyphosate is now not separable from Indian agricultural practices. Now, when we all talk so much good about glyphosate, then there is why opposition to it. Why some people are trying to say, don't use glyphosate. What is the problem? Now, it's a typical behavior or thought process that people try to see wrong in everything that is going good. You find few of them, but you do find them. Whether you take it of any activity. If you are using chemicals, you are using it in technology, whether it is GMO or whatever, you do find some people raising the red flag. When I spoke to those people few years back, about 3 years back to be precise, those people were not fully informed even. They were saying, see, this product is getting made in USA and sold into India and all that. I told them, no, glyphosate is made in India now. And not now, since 1986, glyphosate technically is made in India. So people were looking at it as something imported, like, those olden days when the weeds accidentally got introduced into our country. Similarly, a wrong hypothesis gets created. Anything chemical means bad. Anything chemical means harmful. But we conveniently forget that in our life, you cannot live without chemical. Starting your day with brushing your teeth, to reading the newspaper, which is printed with the printing ink, and you talk of anything and everything. So chemicals are part of our life, rather essential part of our life, and good part of our life. But still, we pick up pesticides, we pick up herbicides, glyphosate, as target saying they are chemicals, don't use them, they can harm. Now, spending so many years in agrochemical industry, I can confidently tell you the kind of data, kind of studies, those are generated on each of agrochemical, each of formulation, and each of its usage is extremely large, very, very large. It takes care of the questions in the mind about the safety of all kinds of safety. It's a contact, oral, dermal, eye irrigation, short term, long term, medium term, like carcinogenicity, teratogenicity, and whatnot. So after doing everything, including the field studies for the safety to environment, non-target organism, ecosystem, soil movement of pesticides, herbicides. So after doing everything, someone comes up and says there is a problem. I always appeal to the people, the way it happens in elsewhere in the world. The topic is put up onto the website of the government agency, like say could be USDA, and people are free to contribute their viewpoint, pick up the point, of course, based on a science. And then that can go forward for the further debate or analysis or discussion. So I always encourage people to come up with a genuine concern, genuine questions about any of the product or any of the issue, and get themselves first fully updated about the available knowledge, available research. As Dr. Parag clearly mentioned, in the whole of the world, lot of research takes place. Number of research topics do get published on a same subject. Say, for example, glyphosate effect on fish. You will find not less than 5,000 research papers on that. Now, there could be one odd paper in these 5,000 research papers which may indicate that there can be some possible problem to particular fish species when the glyphosate was used at say 20 times than the normal dose. Now, such abnormal findings and abnormal studies do get rationalized, as Dr. Parag explained. The whole body of the research is taken into account while arriving at any specific outcome. I will appeal once again, anybody having any specific technically sound query, we as an industry will be very keen to provide more details, more information to satisfy them that yes, there is no problem with the glyphosate, whether you talk application with water hyacinth. One good thing I want to connect now, that Mr. Barsawde, in his package of treating and retrieving the water canals and controlling the weeds, he has a system of releasing fish species in that treated water, or rather, if the water is not treated, if the weeds are treated, that lake. So you can imagine that by using glyphosate, he is killing the weeds, removing them, and releasing the fish which are enjoying or happily growing in that water. So what I again would like to say, any doubt, any query, always we'll have to talk across, bring the viewpoint. Viewpoint could be different, no problem. But we'll have to try to understand the issue and understand it fully, understand it scientifically and technically, before raising the red flag that nahi chalega and all that. Understand? Number two, this country wants to move forward in agriculture. Some country like Sri Lanka, all of a sudden said, I want to go organic.
We have, Dr. Arun, are you done with your speech, I guess? Dr. Arun, can you hear me? Shinan, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right. There are several beautiful questions that have come, and we will take those questions one by one. But before taking the questions, I have two more wonderful speakers. I would like to invite here Dr. A.R. Sharma. I suppose he's still there. Dr. Sharma was here, but he is not. We have Dr. Kashyap. Dr. Kashyap is a microbiologist, and he has been a visitor to Saguna Baug several times in past few years, and is Dr. Kashyap is there. Dr. Shashidhar Kashyap, can you?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, okay. Thank you, Dr. Kashyap. So can you please give your comments, Dr. Kashyap, on what you have been listening, what you have been seeing at Saguna Baug? We recently carried out an experiment. You can even talk about that experiment. Thank you, Dr. Kashyap. Go ahead.
Last time when I was there in Saguna Baug, one experiment was being carried out by Mr. Bhattaule. He had a big fish tank which held about 100 liters of water, in which about 30 fishes were introduced. That means about 4 or 5 varieties of them. And on the top layer, water hyacinth was brought in and kept. And then the water hyacinth was sprayed with the regular concentration of glyphosate. And we took an initial sample, and then we took samples every 24 hours. We found that even up to 96 hours, there was no mortality, no LD50 as we talk about. So as far as the concentration which was used for killing the water hyacinth had no effect on the fishes themselves. That was one part of it. Second is like people have already said, that glyphosate is being used in various agricultural practices for intensive agriculture. So when you are talking about intensive agriculture and you want to increase your crop yields, the weeds will come in the way and reduce your crop yield. So it is a what you call necessary thing to remove the weeds. Now, how you remove it is what is important, but glyphosate is being used all over. Now, as far as glyphosate is concerned, after it is sprayed, anything which enters the soil, it is tightly bound to the soil sediment or whatever is there, and it is not easily leached from the soil into groundwater. Second is there are certain types of bacteria, like you have Lystinobacillus sphaericus, which has been shown to break down this glyphosate into going by the sarcosine pathway. It brings it into what you call glycine and other compounds, which are not toxic at all as far as the environment is concerned. So if you say that you're spraying the glyphosate in Powai Lake and over the water hyacinth, whatever residual that enters into the water, bacteria are capable of degrading this glyphosate into materials which are non-toxic. So that is something which we have to look at. Now, if Mr. Badsawale also showed about rivers where he has removed the water hyacinth. But there what happens is when you spray glyphosate, it can be carried downstream. Whatever is not absorbed onto the plant leaves can be carried downstream. Now, some experiments will really have to be carried out, whether downstream there is any accumulation, and if there is bioaccumulation, whether that affects downstream aquatic life. That is what maybe some sort of experiment may have to be done to still prove that it is safe. But as far as I know about bacterial degradation of glyphosate, it can be converted into safer molecules, which do not harm the environment in any way. People have asked questions about increasing the amount of phosphate in the water. Definitely, it is in micrograms. See, the spraying that is done is hardly about 12 to 25 micrograms per liter of water. That is the concentration of glyphosate which is normally used. So at that level, the amount of phosphate that is there would not be so deleterious to the aquatic environment. So I don't think that we should jump to the conclusion that if you spray a chemical like glyphosate, it will affect aquatic species, whatever is existing. And especially in today's paper, I saw that people have talked about crocodiles. Now, crocodiles, of course, are a different species. Maybe some amount of work would be done, but there is less work on actual crocodile as far as glyphosate is concerned. But the quantity that we are using is far, far less than what can cause toxicity. If you are saying I am using like 20 times more, 50 times more, or 100 times more, then we have to be worried. So these are some of the things that we have to look at before we just say, no, we should not use it. Maybe certain long-term studies could be carried out. And in the last 30 years, as far as glyphosate is concerned, a lot of studies have been done. There are disputes, of course, that it causes non-Hodgkin's lymphoma or some other problem. These things are there. It is not that reports are not there, but it is not that this type of cancer is occurring at a very large level. So that again we have to take into consideration that is it only glyphosate, or is it that you're already exposed to so many chemicals in the environment that maybe that you had glyphosate also being used, plus you had other chemicals. We regularly use so many chemicals in our house itself, whether to kill the mosquitoes or to kill the cockroaches or whatever. These are all again dangerous. We use chemicals, different types of detergents. So even those could affect us. There is a range of food. Now all these foods could have been contaminated. So we cannot just say that, okay, we heard about glyphosate and we link that to our cancer or to our ailment, because we are already exposed to so many chemicals in the environment. So it becomes difficult unless you have controlled studies being done which actually links glyphosate to any of these ailments that people are worried about. So that is what I feel. But basically in the environment, you have different bacterial species which are capable of degrading a range of chemicals, including glyphosate. So if you say that you're worried that residual glyphosate will bioaccumulate and cause problems, we could also see if in that environment we have the right type of bacterial species which are already degrading that compound into non-deleterious what you call end product. So that itself is what will tell us that how effective that bacterial degradation is and how safe it is in the environment. Thank you. Over to you, Badsawale sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Shinan wants to say something. Please go ahead, Dr. Shinan.
I was listening to what my colleague said, and I was also reading the chat. And I would like to comment about some of the questions that have come up there. First of all, I want to reassure you that I do not work for a chemical company or a company that manufactures glyphosate, and I'm not their agent, and I don't intend to sound like a salesman for them. My opinions are based on my experience over the last 25 years. That's a long period of time. Someone mentioned here that DDT was considered wonderful until people found out that it's terrible for the environment and for people. I agree that DDT is certainly a detrimental chemical. One of the problems is that DDT's half-lifetime is 90 years. That means that if we want to see all of it disappearing, it will take more than 200 years. And that, of course, is something that we do not want to put in the environment. And glyphosate does not have the half-lifetime of 90 years. In addition to that, it's been used extensively on land and water. And to date, the number of scientific articles that show some type of a problem are only a handful. So that does say something about this chemical. And also we must always remember that you have to maintain safe quantities. That is, follow the instructions of the people who have tested this and know exactly what is your limit. Obviously, if you give a lot more than what is needed, you will cause harm. That goes for medication as well. It's lovely to have one aspirin tablet can help you. But if you take 100 tablets, it for sure will harm you. So we have to see in the articles what was done exactly, how much was applied, at what concentrations, to what need, over what surface, etc., etc. So I don't say that everything is wonderful, but we should very carefully check what was done in each of these experiments, both in those that showed good results and those that showed some detrimental results. That is my comment to some of the people who have mentioned here different other chemicals. And of course, the fact that people are using pesticides at enormous quantities does not in any way mean that using glyphosate is nothing compared to that. That's not the argument. The argument is, does it harm the environment? And if so, to what extent? Now, I read one comment that glyphosate might have an effect on the bacteria in the gut of some animals or fish. I've studied the microbiome of fish, and there are many, many chemicals, and not only chemicals, different foods affect the microbiome in different ways. So it's very difficult to pinpoint and to say glyphosate did this, and as a result, the fish died or was harmed by the exposure to glyphosate. In saying so, I don't mean that this does not have to be checked and has to be checked very carefully. One more comment to one of the people. They asked, who funded my tests and my experiments? Well, I worked for the government of Israel, and the government of Israel funded this, these tests. And of course, I don't think that any of you have in mind that the government of Israel owns a factory that manufactures glyphosate. So the results that we had are based on our experiments, which were not funded by a chemical company. And therefore, I think that they are more reliable than some of the results that might be coming out from different chemical companies. I hope that I've shed some light on the questions that people had.
Yeah, and at this time, maybe I can probably make some comments based on the questions. So again, just for disclosure, all my research was funded by US funding agencies, government funding agencies such as National Science Foundation, USDA, National Institutes of Health, and US Israel BARD. So it wasn't funded by any of the chemical making companies. Some of the questions here, I kind of was in the chat going over it. And so there was a question about literature. Is there a literature about phytoplankton impacts? And just simple search in Google Scholar or PubMed revealed hundreds of, I think, citations that came up. So there is literature out there. I haven't gone through them one by one to look at what concentrations were used and that type of, I think, work. So there is a literature out there. There was a comment about glyphosate, and this is the Bayer case somebody had mentioned about. Again, it's a legal issue, and it's still probably continue to go until the Supreme Court of the United States. So, but what my comments were based on the body of knowledge and the regulatory approvals of glyphosate, not a specific legal case. Very often those cases are based on what type of, again, I'm not talking about this case, but in general, what type of instructions are given with the use of those chemicals. I remember of a case in the United States where somebody spilled hot coffee in McDonald's coffee and won the case because there were no instructions on the cup that the liquids inside are really hot. So now if you go to any of the coffee place in United States, you'll have that instruction on it that the liquids inside are very hot. So be cautious because people can sue you if they haven't been instructed exactly how to use, at what concentration and how. So again, I don't know about the specifics of it. I won't want to comment on it, but I was talking more in terms of scientific knowledge, not a specific legal case. The other parts of this, I think the DDT question was already answered, and that's based on the half-life. The glyphosate half-life is in days, even in aquatic situation, rather than tens of years for DDT, which is a large difference in the half-lives. And so then the there is also a question about some of the, I guess, the comments and questions I read were about certain states in the India banning it. Again, that's the regulations in India and the regulatory bodies in India. And I do not have knowledge of what criteria and the process they use in deciding which chemicals to allow and which to ban. There was a question about, the long-term impact, and should we know if we really don't know exactly what happens? And that probably relates to what is called precautionary principle, which means that if a technology or a chemical, if there is even a little bit of uncertainty, because anytime when there is a risk, there is never 0% or 100%, there is an uncertainty. And then we shouldn't really adopt that technology if there is an uncertainty. That precautionary principle is something that many times many people advocate, and it's based on values and not based on science. Whenever we talk about risk, it's a matter of what level of risk you want to take. Just take the case of COVID vaccine. A number of people in the United States do not want to take it because, again, they're making the same arguments that, okay, there isn't a long-term data because COVID-19 was just came into play only in 2019. But it's it's a personal value-based decision about whether you want to take that risk or not. Whether you want to take the risk of maybe 10 years later if there is an impact of that vaccine, or whether you want to live for 10 years because you take a vaccine. And that's the decision that people make based on their values and not based on the science that is available at that time. And again, then there is also, I think, thrives in phosphate-rich environment, and there's urban sewage in Poway water, which makes it really phosphate-rich, and really glyphosate does not stop phosphate addition to water, because as it was just mentioned, it is really minute amounts that is being added, and it gets diluted and then degraded rapidly. The major source of phosphate in waters like Poway Lake is not going to be glyphosate, is going to be the sewage flowing into the in the lake. And then I think there's I think then there are, I think, some comments about, oh, maybe one odd paper which can refute a long-standing hypothesis, certainly, but it never is just one paper. Then there is a body of literature that is generated after that paper supporting it. A single observation, single study does not make knowledge. It may start it, but it will be then a body of literature supporting it afterwards. And I think that's something that's how the science works. Then there are papers, glyphosate does help absorb certain chemicals, which is true. There's also a question about effect on other fauna and flora, and I think it will impact if it is in sufficient quantities and it is absorbed in other plants, including ferns, it will impact their metabolism. But in animals, they don't have this pathway, and therefore it does not inhibit them and impact their metabolism. And it may impact the microbiome of the guts, which I think there were comments, and it was already clearly told with the fish microbiome. It's not just glyphosate. Anything that we eat, it impacts our gut microbiome, whether it is medicines we take or whether it is the type of food we eat. So there are impacts on microbiomes, and those are generally reverted based on how you change your diet and what is consumed or absorbed in your gut. Then I was just going through them. Then there is another question, which is why can't we just remove them physically? And I think that method is also has been used. That's why I think, so it very often is a combination of chemicals, physical methods, biological controls are often used, and then re-establishing those ecosystems by introducing the native species in those systems is a way to really get rid of invasive species like water hyacinth. And I think then there is a question for Dr. Kashyap. I think these are covering, and I'll keep on reading these comments, and if there are other people who want to make comments at this time.
That's really wonderful, Dr. Parag. You have really taken up a lot of responsibility in answering these questions really wonderfully. But I will read some of the questions which I have received, and I'll see if who can give answer. There is a question from Priyanka Jamwal. Spraying herbicide will kill and encourage hyacinths to sink and decompose. Wouldn't it cause anaerobic conditions in lake? I will try to answer that question. Today, for example, this Poway Lake, which has got a boundary all around it, and the hyacinth cannot be pushed out just by flow. what it is that this work which we are going to do, and the same work which we carried out in Aurangabad, that killing the water hyacinth by glyphosate is one part, and then taking it to the shore and lifting it with machines and then dumping it and making manure out of it was the second part of the work. So this was done very effectively in Aurangabad. We converted almost 150 115 dumpers, each truck of about 8 to 10 tons. That was taken out from there and it was converted into manure, and that manure is being used in Aurangabad city even till today. So that's the work, and some of it will sink and will become detritus, which will in turn become food for fish and other aquatic animals if the other aquatic animals are promoted to grow. But by the way, if we don't kill and try to remove it by the technique which we are adopting, if we don't make that as an effort from outside, all of it will die, because each plant has its time frame. And during that time frame, once it dies, it will sink even naturally, and it is already creating problem. So to be able to reduce the problem, we have to address the problem. The next question is anonymous attendee. Are there studies reflecting impact of chronic exposure on human and animal health? Which is already explained by Dr. Dhuri and by Dr. Parag at several attempts. And yes, there are short-term, middle-term, and long-term experiments carried out. And yeah, there is a question that there is question in relation to the same question. If we can remove it to shore after it dies, why not when it's live? Pardon if this sounds baseless. No, nobody, you don't have to be pardoned. This is a meeting which is organized between all of us, and I'm very happy to say that there is constant rise in the number of participants. Now we have got more than 70 participants, and it's been constantly rising. So there is a lot of interest, and all the participants are intensely interested into knowledge. And I'm so happy that this is the best gain. We are all in good time. It's been almost 1.5 hours, and we have some at least half a more hour, 40 minutes at least we have got to answer your questions. Yes, this question related to the water hyacinth sinking, or why not remove it while it is alive. See, water hyacinth mother plant, each plant carries all the time 9 to 11 daughter plants on its body. So if we try to give even smallest of the physical impact to remove that one mother plant from the water, the mother plant releases all the daughter plants, and they fall in the water and they start growing. Water hyacinth has a very high speed of covering the surface, the growth. So actually, when we remove physically the water hyacinth when it is live, if we try to remove one plant, we're actually sowing 9 to 11 plants. So removing water hyacinth, this is the reason why removing water hyacinth physically by dredging has failed all the time. It is very expensive also. The next question, again, Priyanka Jamwal, are there any long-term studies? Oh yeah, I answered it. What are the barriers towards scaling up of the use of this herbicide? There are no barriers. Yeah, Dr. Dhuri, you want to say about it?
There was some problem in the communication.
Thank you. Thank you for appearing. Can you please answer this question? I will repeat the question. what are the barriers towards scaling up the use of this herbicide? Dr. Dhuri?
So I
Hello.
would.
Hello. Hello. Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yeah, good. See, the question is, what are the barriers for?
Hello.
For scaling up use of this weedicide.
I don't know, because simply reason, this is a very important tool in the kit of a farmer to do his job. Why one would like to drop it just like that for no reason? I don't see any reason why glyphosate should be stopped by the farmer, not at all. It is giving him a very good tool for controlling weeds. It is giving him an economical tool to control the weeds. It is giving him a freedom from the hard work that he has been doing for removing the weeds physically. So glyphosate, to the best of my understanding, is the best thing that has happened in the life of Indian farmer. Indian farmer need glyphosate. Indian farmer will benefit out of it. And all that what government of India is talking about, doubling the farming income and all that, if we do not allow farmer to use chemicals of right kind and the technologies which will benefit him, then how the farmer is going to progress? And most of the people who are not on the farm, not in the field, standing next to the farmer and seeing what he goes through, create lot of comments which are harming farmer rather than helping farmer. I strongly believe that glyphosate is required for agriculture in India, and it will have to continue. So there is no need to abandon glyphosate at all.
Yeah. I think the question was also in other direction, that what are the barriers towards scaling up the use of herbicide? And I think there are no barriers as such. Glyphosate is one of the largest selling product all over the world. It is being used in 160 countries. Dr. Dhuri, if you can just tell us a figure, how much it is used in India, what quantity?
See, in India, putting all the formulations together, the usage is close to 12,000 kiloliters.
Yeah, so it's really huge. It's very huge. That's
But
fine.
our country is also huge. If you go by the per hectare usage, then Indian usage is not very big.
Okay, we have got lots of questions. I will go again. The questions are increasing. It says, anonymous attendee, there was a news in July 2020, glyphosate has banned in India as it is harmful to human. But no, that is not a correct news. Glyphosate is available all over in all shops and it is not banned. Next question is, algae grows at concentration as low as 10 microgram per liter. Will herbicide spraying not cause algal bloom? No, we have not seen any algal bloom in algal bloom or boom in any water body after it was sprayed with glyphosate. There is next question by Ameya. There are a good natural practices which have shown very convincing effects, introducing oxygen with small percentage of ozone. Why to use chemicals, especially on which a lot of questions are raised. This is why this seminar is, this is why this webinar is, to remove the doubts in the minds of people based on science. But you know, there is always a situation that many people, some of the fears cannot be removed from their mind, however we try. Like, for example, I know a scientist who is really strong, big and powerful, but that scientist is scared of the chipkali, the common house lizard. I tried, however I tried, I could not remove the fear from that scientist's mind about the chipkali. You cannot remove the fear from people's mind, and it's a natural phenomena. So we cannot help. Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Shinan. You want to say something?
Yeah, it was intriguing for me to see this comment that you can use ozone instead of chemicals in order to treat against water hyacinth. Ozone is very, very dangerous, and people who are exposed to ozone can be harmed tremendously. And I have seen a number of fish ponds treated with too much ozone, and within a matter of minutes, the fish all died. So taking this and comparing it to glyphosate, in my mind, is like saying that you can use pesticides instead of using some other light chemical.
Okay. So we will go to next question.
But Savle, sir, can I
Yeah.
make a comment?
Please go ahead.
Yeah, since we have been talking so much about water hyacinth in either flowing water bodies or lakes, basically whatever water hyacinth is growing is all because of sewage inflow into all these water bodies. So the first thing is we have to look at how do we stop this inflow of sewage into water bodies, so it will solve some problem. That is definitely for sure, and that is what any municipal authority or any state government should look at, how to get these places where effluent is coming out, the sewage is coming out, how do we stop it or treat it at that source itself instead of allowing it to come to the water body. Second is whatever experiments have been done now is definitely limited. The ecosystem is really vast and it has different things that we have to look at. But lot of work needs to be done. Whether it is like being a microbiologist, I would say definitely a lot of work should be done in the microbial degradation of glyphosate, so that we are sure that if the glyphosate is added today, and on the leaf it will be absorbed in say a few minutes to a few hours, and the effect will take place inside the plant itself. But whatever spills over, whether it is in the water, if the bacteria can also degrade it at a faster rate, then the amount of glyphosate in the water would definitely become almost tending towards zero. So that effect of bioaccumulation will not be there. So we have to think of these things. There are a lot of studies which can be done. I'm not saying that whatever has been done up to now is what is all that is there and nothing more can be done. But definitely in Indian conditions where Mr. Badsale has already put 5,000 farmers on the job or using glyphosate, this is actually a fertile place for doing certain experiments to prove that glyphosate residue does not exist in the environment for how many days. That is what such experiments would help us to understand and remove the fear from the people. Rather than outright saying that we should not use glyphosate, I think some amount of research is required in addition to whatever has been done till today. That is what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Wonderful. Yes. Dr. Kashyap, we have our 5,000 farmers carrying out the experiment by use of glyphosate plus some other weedicides on their farm. They have become happy. Their soil is become happy. It's become fragrant and soft. It is the organic carbon of the soil has increased. And most importantly, one of our empirical observations is all those 5,000 farmers are saying that we can see earthworms, natural earthworms, presence of natural earthworms in millions of numbers in all of the farms. So these are some of our empirical observations. This is the observation of last maybe 10 years by our SRT method in all 8 agroclimatic zones with 5,000 farmers. But let us proceed to the next question. How can we apply the use of herbicide in river? Please show demo. Also, how much cost per square meter area, and how many days river will be clear of weeds? We have, of course, we have done for the first time work in a flowing river. That was, we started work in the month of April 21, and we have yet to get some good information. But as of now, what we see, and based on our previous experience, we think the river Ullas has been cleared of water hyacinth, and we know it will not regrow in few years to come. Of course, some maintenance work needs to be done. It's not magic. See, the problem is created and we have to address the problem systematically, scientifically, and persistently. So we have to address that problem, and rest of the thing, the demo and all that, you can go on our website. You can say SRT, and on SRT YouTube channel, there are several video films that are available on public domain. I'll go to the next question. Sir, I have heard that water hyacinth also, this is by Sri Kuttan, water hyacinth also produce seeds with higher dormancy rate. Even if all these water hyacinth were removed, in is there any chance of germination from seeds settled in the riverbed? And should we keep on applying these chemicals periodically? We don't know yet, but today we have a big problem. That problem is of today. That problem was yesterday. And in a lake like Powai, the problem has been there since 1988 or early 80s. We need to address that problem as soon as possible, now, today or tomorrow. Once we remove that problem, which is big problem right now, then only we can go to the next step. And yes, we have to be persistent. I already said that we have to be persistent in using various technologies. It would be very good if there's so much of interest, and all this interest putting together, I'm sure newer technologies will be born and newer ideas will come forward. We are ready to work with you all. If we join hands together, our work will be much bigger, much effective, and much better. Our objective is to save water bodies of this country. The next question I will address, Ulka Pawar. Could you throw light on the process of using these chemicals step by step, like how it is introduced to water, how much time it takes to kill the water hyacinth, and later on, how do we flush it, and where? How do we take care of the few percent of hyacinth that cannot be killed, is not flushed further to the seas, etc. As I said, we have got some information on the public domain, SRT, our YouTube channel, and our various other places. But quickly I will go. We use the concentration of glyphosate 1:100 ml, 1:100 of water, 1 of glyphosate, 100 of water, and we spray on the foliage. In a place like Powai Lake, we use drone technology, but if it is only on the shores, we can go on foot and use various different types of pumps to spray it. And once it is sprayed, the killing time is about, you start seeing the yellowing after about 4 to 6 days, depending on the season, depending on the sunshine, depending on the concentration. So after that, the water hyacinth becomes loose enough. When it is live, it's a very compact and very strong society. But when it is spread and it starts losing its power, you can separate it and take it to the shore and remove it very easily. I will go to the next question, Dr. Anand Rao. When the chemical is being spread, part of it would be carried away by wind, air. What is the ultimate fate of this chemical? How would the other plants, animals of various sorts exposed to such spray get affected? You are right, Dr. Rao. We don't spray when it is very windy because we lose our efforts. And our idea is to be very impactful, very precise. So we choose a time when there is no wind. That's what we have written down as an instruction. Yes, of course, if we spray it while it is windy or while it is rainy, we lose the efficacy of our operation. So we don't spray when it is windy or when it is when it has to be an appropriate situation. I see a question to Dr. Shinan. Can you read it, Dr. Shinan, and respond?
Thank you for answering my question. Ozone, when used in required amount, is not harmful at all. It's the same thing as you were saying that glyphosate to be used in prescribed dosage. Also, ozone doesn't leave any byproducts. And also, half-lifetime of ozone is hardly 15 minutes at 25 degrees Celsius temperature. Ozone directly attacks impurities in the water, which are the root cause of weeds. Would you like to put your thoughts on the same? What I have seen, it's very difficult to regulate the amount of ozone coming out in the water. And it's true that ozone is a very powerful way of dealing with impurities in the water, but the dangers of sliding into a higher, more harmful level are there, and the dangers are great. It can happen within seconds, not even minutes, to release a high level of ozone. It's very difficult to regulate it in the water. Therefore, although being not a chemical or not exactly a chemical per se, it still is problematic in terms of safety, both to the people using it and to the aquatic environment. Relatively low levels of ozone in the water can kill fish and crustaceans. And we, of course, do not want to reach those levels, and it's not very easy to regulate them. Therefore, on the scale of natural or good or use, it might be problematic to use ozone because of how dangerous it is when you lose control of the amount being administered.
Wonderful. Yeah, plus I would like to add to it that ozone, I don't know how it will stop or kill water hyacinth, because our objective is to kill water hyacinth and not just treat the water. And if it was a technology like ozone technology, this should have had been tried in a lake like Powai, which is so important lake. And I'm sure the authorities, if we have some experts and they're ready to take risk, even after the mention by Dr. Shinan Harpaz, I'm sure the authorities would allow anyone to carry out their experiment with ozone in a place like either Powai or I don't know. But to my opinion, after listening to Dr. Shinan and the question, glyphosate is a much more easier, effective, and safe technology than the ozone technology to get rid of the main problem, which is water hyacinth.
But Saule sir, can I say something? Hello.
Please go
Yeah.
ahead.
Now, ozone normally is used to degrade organics in water. And what you're saying is, if the organics are degraded in water, and if there is less amount of materials for the plant to grow, then automatically those plants will not grow to that extent. But ozone itself will not kill these plants directly. It is actually a product which is used for degradation of organics in water. That is definitely used, especially when you want to purify the water to the extent that you don't want to have any BOD or COD in that water. So that way, okay. I mean, ozone to that extent can be used for that, but not for killing the water hyacinth itself, because that is not the main purpose. Ozone will anyway add more oxygen to the water, and that water itself will become more oxygenated. That will useful for the aquatic life. But I don't think there is anything that says that it will kill the water hyacinth directly. Yeah. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Kashyap. And it's so wonderful discussion. It's just fantastic webinar. Lots of beautiful questions and answers. I'm glad those questions were there, and that means there are so many serious people here on the webinar, and the number is constantly, it's maintained. So everybody's seems to be doing, been satisfied and happy about this question, this whole problem that we are facing. We have somebody called Mr. Nagesh raised his hand, and yes, please go ahead, Nagesh. Mr. Nagesh, you may say so, whatever you want to say. Take only couple of minutes. We are coming to an end. After that, I would like Dr. Parag to give a final comment.
Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Nagesh.
Okay. See, basically, the problem with lakes like Powai and all lakes in Bangalore is they are all hyper eutrophicated. And as somebody mentioned, the main reason is the ingress of sewage and other chemicals also. But I will stick to sewage, which is the primary source of phosphorus, in the lake. Now, if you kill the hyacinth, then there is always a competition, even in normal lake, between sewage, hyacinth and algae, right? Allelopathic tussle is going on. And if you kill the hyacinth, then it will give rise to algae. So it doesn't solve the problem because the nutrient is there in the lake, which is the main reason why all this problem occurs. So we are not addressing the root cause. We are simply giving, the battle one-sided advantage to algae.
Okay. I think I get your question, your comment, and let me try to answer. Though I'm not a politician nor an authority on any of the commissioner or any of the kind of, I'm not an authority to give that answer, but let me see if I can try. There are, say, 4 problems. And if we have to, this is what I look at it. This is how me and my team looks at it, that the problems are, there is water body. The water body is covered completely, as you saw in the pictures earlier, that the water body gets covered completely. I heard that there are water bodies in Bangalore and Hyderabad, even Dal Lake or Chennai. We are all facing the problem. And that water hyacinth is causing problem today, now. So first is that we have to get rid of this water hyacinth and let the water breathe the fresh air, the oxygen coming into natural oxygenation process should take place. Second, let the solar energy, the sun rays penetrate into the water. That's our second requirement. For both these requirements, we have to remove water hyacinth. And unless and until we remove that water hyacinth, we cannot get those two things in place. Now, if there is algae and if there is water hyacinth, which is bad? Of course, water hyacinth is worst. Algae could be bad in excess. But then there are fish, that this is what we are doing, that we release the fish which are algae eating fish. So hope that solar energy and the sewage that is coming into the water, we look at the sewage as fertility, use the solar energy and air, that is natural aeration process of wind touching the water surface. With this, a certain types of fish will grow and they will consume algae. So fertility is converted into algae and algae is converted into fish. So this process is already happening. This is why the quality of water in Aurangabad Lake for last 2.5 years is only improving. The situation of Aurangabad Lake and situation of Powai Lake are the same. In Aurangabad also, from all around the lake, there is lots of residential colonies that have grown up. Now, whether to address the sewage system first or whether to remove the water hyacinth or not remove the water hyacinth, I don't know how to answer that question. But sooner or later, if the question is the same in Hyderabad, in Bengaluru, in Mumbai, and in Aurangabad, it's the same question, that the sewage is coming into the lake and into the rivers. This is what our country is doing. So I don't know how to solve that problem, but we will stop for the time being here, and we are coming to an end. Dr. Narayan Dabholkar.
Can I take a minute, Badsawale sir?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, what Nagesh said about sewage coming into these water bodies, definitely that is the first thing that we have to address. That is whether it's the municipality or the government or the state government or the central government. That is the first thing they have to address. There is no question about it. Now, if that is addressed, the amount of pollution happening in these water bodies will become less, and growth of algae or water hyacinth also will be manageable. That is what we have to look at. See, right now what we are looking at is an end of pipe solution, where we say we spray glyphosate and kill the water hyacinth. But that is only temporary. That is only for today. But if you look at the near future, maybe 5-10 years down the line, the addressing of the water sewage pollution is more important than the end of pipe solution. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Dr. Narayan Dabholkar from IIT Mumbai I see him there. But would you like to say a few words, Dr. Dabholkar, about the history which, yeah, please go ahead, Dr. Dabholkar.
No, I think this webinar is really excellent. It's really a learning for many of the environmentalists also. And the technology which we have brought in, is really commendable. And certainly, I'm not a technical expert, but then I'm basically an administrator. But then we really want to have the clean lake, clean river, keeping in mind the water bodies, the marine, need to be without affecting them. We need to see that how we can take this forward. So I really, through this webinar, I think this is a very good awareness for many of them. And the technology which you have brought in is really a superb. So I think I just wish you a good luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dabolkar. I would like this webinar has been so excellent. Every minute has been very fruitful. I would like Dr. Parag Chitnis, Director of National this NIFA USDA, to say a few words. The final comment, Dr. Parag, and even Dr. Shinan can say whatever if he likes. Thank you. Go ahead, Doctor.
Yeah, so I'll just make some, I think, kind of concluding comments, and also try to address some of the questions and comments that I have seen in the chat. At the end, if you think about any technologies, my research administration career has been really focused on shepherding use of technologies, whether it is in like biotechnology area or in agriculture, whether it is synthetic biology, use of robotics, AI, machine learning, and then now I think genetic editing type of technologies, and its environmental and societal impacts. So when it comes to risk, like using glyphosate in Poway Lake, it has to be based on how much risk is you are ready to take and accept. There was a question about, there is a difference between vaccine and chemical use, and definitely there is a difference. Both are chemicals. Vaccine is a chemical, so is the glyphosate. One is injected in our bodies, another one is sprayed in the environment. And often humans have different risk tolerance for what we inject in our body or we eat than what is in the environment. Different societies have different risk tolerance. And if in India, the risk tolerance is different than say in Europe versus in United States or in Southern America, those societies make those decisions about what regulations they should have in place to regulate those uncertain environments. And that's when I talked about precautionary principle and uncertainties, it's the societies that decide through their lawmakers and making laws what risks they want to take. There's a body of literature with glyphosate that has shown that it does not pose health or environmental risk if used according to its like plan, which is at the concentrations that it has been recommended and in the way it has been recommended. For example, I think the question came about is like spreading, which is not like non-targeted spreading of the glyphosate. And I think that's part of that use aspect. When there is a wind, it may go on the species that you are not trying to get rid of. And I think that's been addressed already. So I think if it is, and again, the risk that the uncertainty that you have with the risk, if the society does not want to tolerate it, it's that society's decisions through their lawmakers. And for science, they provide solutions, but it's the society that decides whether to accept those solutions or take a risk of not using that technology, or because there is a risk with that too, or using the technology and getting rid of problem, which may pose a risk for unintended consequences. So not knowing what the risk tolerance is in India, it will be the decision for them to make, the regulatory bodies in India, as well as the society that elects officials to the government. Thanks.
Dr. Parag, thank you, Dr. Parag. I would like Dr. Shinan to throw some light at the end.
Thank you, Dr. Parag, and all the participants for your valuable comments. I think that this webinar is very important in order to air out some of the thoughts and problems and questions that people have. And we can see that the problems are there, the solutions are not that easy, but I think that by addressing these questions and answering to the best of our knowledge and ability, I think, were able to at least have people air out their thoughts and think in a different manner about the same problems. And for that, I think that this webinar was very important. And once again, I thank all the participants and wish you good luck in your good work.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all, and see you again. Bye-bye.